Rain drilled into the shining cobblestones along Friedrichstrasse, the slick neon red of the gallery sign dragging colors across puddles at my feet. I stood under the overhang, violin case in hand, watching the crowd push inside where the real Berlin glowed, scarves loose, shoes polished, laughter sharp. My invitation fluttered damp in my coat pocket, just a ticket to disappointment now. I'd waited all month for this night, rehearsed my pitch, wiped fingerprints from the pairwood scroll until it shone. I should have seen it coming. Inside, the air was warm but close. Glasses clinked, voices overlapped. Instruments adorned the walls like jewelry, curves gleaming under soft lights. I searched for Herr Klein, the gallery owner, a flush of hope in my chest despite the odds. He finally spotted me and stalked over with a look anyone would recognize, the readiness to sweep away inconvenience. "Andreas, yes," he said, eyes lingering where rain had soaked my collar. "You can leave your submissions at the desk." "Thank you." He barely looked at the violin when I slid it from its blue velvet nest. Mahogany gleamed, the wood from my mother's old wardrobe, carved and curved by my own hands over 7 months. He plucked a string, grimaced at the rough finish by the tailpiece, then gave a little sigh. "Too rustic, people want Strads rewriters' names, not village experiments." He motioned toward the door, "But thank you, really. Good luck." I forced myself to smile, nod, tuck the violin back inside. My ears burned as a couple looked over at me, the woman nudging the man and whispering. Maybe they even noticed the brand of my coat, secondhand, a little threadbare. Maybe I only imagined it. It didn't matter. I let the door slam behind me, the sound nearly drowned by the patter of rain. The city's night pressed against my ribs as I hurried past the lit windows, heart pounding out old shame and something darker. The violin pressed heavy at my side. I kept to myself the whole way home, dripping from my hair down to my boots by the time I reached my flat in Kreuzberg. My phone blinked with new messages. My cousin Henrik, another joke about Andreas and his wooden sticks. An old classmate, "Saw you're in Star, you got in." I ignored them all, pressing my forehead to the rain-chilled window instead. That was the first time I truly thought about quitting. My family had never understood what I was trying to do. Papa had been a machinist before the plant closed. Tessa managed a bakery kiosk. Work meant something simple, something visible, with direct results and steady hours. They liked music at parties, in church, when somebody else played it and someone else made the instruments. When I told them I wanted to build violins, and only violins, Papa spat out his coffee. Tessa barked a laugh. My Aunt Elsa asked, "Why not something useful? We already have musicians in this family." They didn't stop me, not exactly. They just never let me forget I was wasting time, hoarding splinters in the small garage I called a workshop, listening to hours of concertos and country waltzes on cracked headphones. Playing with wood again, Andy, Henrik liked to ask at family dinners, loud enough that everyone could hear. "You want to join the orchestra or the circus?" My uncles cackled, passing me the potatoes. Even after I scraped enough money for a proper workbench, the jokes didn't end. "Found another tree victim? Do real luthiers come from Neukölln? Where's your diploma?" They had all the questions in the world, none of the faith. So that gallery night, standing wet and small outside the doors of Berlin's bright inner circle, their voices caught up with me again. I paced my tiny kitchen that night, hands shaking, sleep impossible. What if they were right? What if I gave up years for nothing but splinters and ridicule? What if nobody ever cared about my sound? But I couldn't let the shame snuff out everything. I called in sick at my day job at the print shop the next morning and buried myself in my workshop, smelling glue and shavings and old lacquer. I held that rejected violin up to the light, studying every clumsy seam, every too-thick ridge, muscle memory, replaying every mocking laugh and dismissive look. But the curve along the back had come out just right. The F-holes arched gracefully, not like a Stradivarius maybe, but honest, full of the lines of my own hands. I wiped it down and began again, this time with a stubbornness so sharp it made my jaw ache. The next 2 years were a numb haze of early mornings, late nights, second jobs to pay rent, hands splintered and flat from planing wood until my knuckles bled. I couldn't afford tonewoods from Italy, so I haunted the flea markets, hunting old furniture, pear, cherry, beech. I drove nails into forgotten bookshelves just to see how they flexed, just to test the grain under pressure. Nothing sold at first. 2 cellos collapsed under tension, 3 violins sounded like tin cans when I strung them up, and I smashed one in fury against the concrete outside my workshop. My neighbors banged on the pipes. "Don't you get tired?" old Frau Becker called. "Berlin has enough noise already." But each time I thought I'd break, I remembered Herr Klein's sigh, Henrik's jokes, Tessa's weary shake of her head. I burned humiliation like fuel, turning it over and over into stubborn pride. Every new build, something improved, arch a little smoother, neck set just right, varnish finally catching that deep quartersawn glow beneath my lamp. My phone was quiet, messages from home only came on birthdays and holidays, the same old questions rephrased. I stopped checking social media, but I kept building. Sometimes it was enough just to make it through the sleepless hours, glue drying on my hands, fingers curved, listening for the voice from each new body of wood. Sometimes, late at night, I'd close my eyes and imagine my own violin on a concert stage. The real change happened by accident. A young musician named Marja, flat broke and eager, came to me through a friend. She needed a violin, something cheap, anything at all. I sat her down, watched her hands, listened as she played the one deep, husky D string I'd scavenged from a broken instrument. Her eyes widened on the up bow. "It speaks," she whispered, cheeks flushed. She gave a concert in a noisy cafe 3 weeks later, my violin trembling from the effort. An old maestro read about her in a newsletter and tracked me down. He pulled me into his studio, pulled a battered viola from my arms, and played until the hair stood up on the back of my neck. He smiled for the first time in years. Somebody smiled. "You have something, Andreas, you feel for wood, keep working." He sent a friend who sent a student who sent another. A new phone call came then. An email from Vienna, a conservatory curious about my odd woods and deep, growling E strings. An order from a chamber orchestra, then a second. Before I knew it, my calendar filled months ahead. Commissions, questions, traveling musicians bringing battered cases to my door in winter. The first time I raised my price above cost, nobody blinked. That's when I realized I was a luthier, not just a dreamer or a punchline, but for nearly 5 years I never once went home. Whenever Mama called, she asked, "Are you eating Andy?" And I told her yes, though my hands still shook from hours working in the cold, glue drying between my nails. Papa stayed silent, gruff behind her voice. Those years carried both pride and loneliness. Some nights after mailing an instrument to Norway or packing a battered cello for repairs, I'd stand at the window, rain sheeting down, and wish someone understood what I'd built. Not journalists, not distant buyers, but the ones who doubted I'd ever make anything worth notice. But the city was large, and my work was finally enough to keep me. When people at the local cafe asked where I was from, I hesitated, unsure which Berlin belonged to me anymore. Then one autumn, I received an invitation that made my throat click shut. The Philharmonie, a sound I'd known only from childhood radio, wanted to display my work. They'd chosen 2 of my violins for their new exhibit on Berlin craftspeople. There would be a gala, a write-up, a demonstration, a place for my name against polished wood. I kept rereading the invitation, waiting for the words to dissolve, afraid it was a prank. When I called Mama, her voice trembled. "When is it? Can you get tickets?" A part of me cringed at the thought of those old jokes, at Tessa's tight smile, at Henrik's sly commentary over dinner. I hesitated, watching the rain sweep across the city, thinking how many years I'd spent running from their laughter. But this time something inside me said enough. I bought tickets for all of them, Mama, Papa, Tessa, Henrik, Aunt Elsa. Whether out of curiosity or new hope, they all agreed to come. The day of the exhibit arrived with a brisk cold that left my hands red and aching. I paced the echoing hall behind the scenes, the hush broken only by musicians tuning in distant wings. My violins gleamed on velvet pedestals, a curl of pale maple shining under the gallery lights. The program had my name spelled right for once, Andreas Reuter, Neukölln. I watched from behind a curtain as the room filled, afternoon jackets, well-worn coats with familiar faces inside. Papa lingered near the main doors, shifting from foot to foot. Mama kept clutching her bag, lips white. Henrik wandered toward the drinks, eyes sliding over each display. The conductor's voice echoed as he explained the theme of the exhibit, Berlin's hidden makers, crafts that shaped the city's music. He called my name. The crowd turned to look. My family straightened, a wall of expectation and memory. I stepped out, palms slick, heart pounding. The conductor raised my violin. "This one, made by Andreas Reuter, comes from Neukölln, local woods, hand-carved. Let's see how it sings." He handed it to the soloist, a wiry man with calloused hands and tired eyes. He set the chin rest, tested the tuning, then drew a single smooth line across the G string. The sound rang out, dark, warm, alive, coiling up through the golden space overhead. Every conversation faltered. Even Henrik paused, drink held halfway to his lips. The soloist closed his eyes, playing a simple folk melody at first, then swelling into something richer, full of shadows and light. The violin didn't sound rustic, it didn't sound cheap or strange. It sounded like home, honeyed and defiant, refusing to die away as the last note fell. Applause thundered, not polite gallery applause, but the real thing. My knees went weak. I searched the faces in the crowd for my family. Mama pressed a hand to her mouth, eyes shining. Papa stood stiller than I'd ever seen him, thumbs hooked in his belt loops, gaze fixed on the violin. Tessa blinked, surprised, not quite hiding her smile. Even Henrik's smirk faltered, replaced by something closer to awe. Later, they all gathered round, swept along with the others to see up close the work I'd hidden in cramped darkness for years. Mama stroked the maple back, whispering, "You made this, you my Andreas." Tessa's arm was suddenly around my waist, squeezing tight. "You did it," she breathed quietly, "you actually did." Even Papa managed a gruff, "Not bad." "Solid work, son." German hands. His eyes were wet, though he turned away fast. Henrik was last. He hung back, drink finished, eyes roaming the display. "Guess you proved us all wrong, huh?" His voice was low, not mocking now, almost proud. That's something, cousin." People snapped photos. A local news crew filmed me answering questions, my voice barely steady. Maury musicians asked about my process, about the sound. I saw my family watching, uncertain but smiling, as if trying to fit this version of me into everything they'd once laughed away. That night, after the exhibit closed, we stepped into the Berlin night, gallery lights fading behind us. No one joked, no one called me foolish. We walked in silence, rain just beginning to fall, a quiet miracle after so many years of noise. Back in Neukölln, over hot coffee and shared cakes in my flat, they ran fingers over my tools, curious at last. Papa traced the old pearwood offcut with a thick thumb. Mama noticed the shavings on the floor and didn't sigh. Tessa said softly, "You never stopped believing, did you?" I only smiled, hands raw but steady. That night rain tapped a slow rhythm outside. I sat watching my family, all their doubts finally washed clean, their faces full of something unfamiliar, pride maybe, or wonder. For the first time in years, I felt not like an outsider but like I belonged, to them, to Berlin, to this strange, stubborn calling that wouldn't die. As I watched Mama cradle my violin in her lap, I understood what real success felt like. It wasn't applause or headlines, not even the steady stream of commissions or the thrill of seeing my name in print. It was this, the simple proof that my hands had shaped something true, something lasting, something beautiful enough to bring even skeptics home. Outside, the city kept raining, alive with every note I'd ever heard. I closed my eyes and listened, courage and shame wound together, singing.